Lord, make me the place where you'll shine through, that you and I could be one, not two, that I need not worry, fret, or plan. You'll want me where and as I am. And if I could be relaxed and free, you'd carry out your plan through me. I'm Bob, and I'm an alcoholic. Through the grace of a God that I was afraid to believe in, that I've accessed through a process outlined in a book called Alcoholics Anonymous, the ability to remain sponsorable and a persistent and consistent effort in our primary purpose of trying to forget ourselves and devote our lives to helping others. I haven't had a drink or any mind or emotion-altering medication since October 31st, 1978. I want to thank Jimmy. He's been a great host. He doesn't know it, but they're in the AA Host Hall of Fame at General Service Office. They're building a statue of him as we speak here tonight. I'm not supposed to tell him that because it would go to his head, but where else would it go, for God's sakes? And I'm embarrassed. It's nothing. It's good for me to be embarrassed. I was embarrassed. I wasn't paying attention. I stood up during the Al-Anon deal because I wasn't listening. Because I had that ADD before it came out. I'm telling you. And oh, jeez. God help me. I can't wait to hear what I'm going to say. I want to welcome the newcomers. Glad you're here, especially our friend that got the, oh my God, you got a book and a standing ovation for recently burning your life to the ground. Oh my God. Oh. You're not going to get that at the Elks, I'm telling you. Oh, jeez. Oh. AA's a funny place, I'll tell you. We do things a little different here. This is not Amway. This is not Anthony Robbins. This is different. And we're the only organization on the planet that I know of that you come in a big shot, and if you're lucky, you work your way up to servant. I almost, if you're new here, or even if you're not new, my great hope for you is the same hope I have and try to maintain for myself, is that I never underestimate alcoholism, and I never, for God's sakes, overestimate myself. This is the only fatal illness I know of that if you got it, it uses your own mind against you, and we die and don't even see what's happening to us because of the way we talk to ourselves in our head. And I didn't know that. I almost died of this disease because I'm that guy. I fit the old adage, you can always tell an alcoholic, you just can't tell him much. I'm that guy. I'm arrogant, and yet I burn my life to the ground. I'm the lowest piece of crap on the earth, and yet you put me in a treatment center or in an AA meeting, and even though I'm the lowest piece of crap on the earth, I'm the smartest guy in the room. And I can't listen to anybody. And if you would have accused me of being arrogant, I would say, no, I'm not arrogant. I'm a homeless. I'm not arrogant. I was arrogant and didn't know it. And I didn't know what it was. I went to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I wasn't quite old enough to take a legal drink. And I needed AA then as much as I need it today. I was 20 years old. I'd been locked up for the first time when I was almost 16 as a result of juvenile delinquent charges, 3 times in juvenile court, all around drinking. And I remember when I was in that juvenile court judge's chambers, some people are using the alcoholic word on me. You know what I mean? It's offensive. I'm thinking to myself, I'm not here because of alcoholism. I'm here because of snitches, for God's sakes. And when it says in the beginning of our 3rd chapter, it's such a universally true thing that most of us have been unwilling to admit we were real alcoholics. I do not want to be an alcoholic. I mean, my parents weren't alcoholics, but there were alcoholics in my family, and they were obnoxious and pathetic, and everybody talked crap behind their back. I don't want to be like that. But it doesn't matter what I want. If you're alcoholic, you're alcoholic, whether you believe you are or not. And I was alcoholic and didn't know it. And I went to, a few years later, I went to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I didn't think I was an alcoholic. You could have put me on a lie detector and said, Bob, is there any way in the world you're an alcoholic? I would have said no. Now, I would have admitted to being a drug addict because that's kind of sexy and cool. I was a wannabe rock star, and there was rock stars that professed to be drug addicts. I mean, they were very amazing to me. I never looked up to anybody that wet their pants on a regular basis. And I'll be a mental health case. I'm good with that, because if you're a mental health case, you get pills and sympathy. I like both of those. But I don't want to be an alcoholic. Oh, no, 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 no. It doesn't change it. I am. And I remember in the early 70s, I'd go to these meetings in treatment centers. I was made to go, and I don't think I'm an alcoholic. And there's something about me that this disease uses my own mind against me, and it's very well defended. And you know how I defend myself against the truth about my alcoholism? I sit in the meetings, and I listen to you, and I watch you, and I see only the differences. I can't see the similarities. And we die coming to AA, looking for the differences and never seeing the similarities. Even after 5 or 6 years, I suppose, of treatment centers, when you get to a point where you're just bludgeoned into an acceptance through your failure. Okay, I'm alcoholic. All right, I'm alcoholic. But I'm a special kind of alcoholic. You know what I mean? Isn't that weird? Is that so weird? It's how I don't want to see what the truth. And AA is beautiful because AA introduces you to the truth whether you like it or not. AA is so pragmatic, and it's so simplistic in its approach to alcoholism because it's practical and it makes sense. And I didn't know that. I heard people talk about God. I thought it was one of those ethereal religious spirit. I thought it was all that kind of crap, and it's not. And it never was. And it never will be. Alcoholics Anonymous is often accused by people who don't understand what we are of being a faith-based program. And I get it. It looks that way. But it's not. It's an action-based program. There's something wrong with guys like me. And I've sponsored clergy. There's something wrong with the alcoholic that we can believe in God, but we're blocked from the connection because we're too full of ourselves. And I didn't know that. And I was afraid of God. I just thought, I remember going to meetings and people talking about God and good for you. Jeez. I mean, if there was a God, and I'm betting there ain't, because if there is, I'm in a lot of trouble. He might help you. You're nice people. You don't know about me. You don't know some of the slimy, horrible things I've done to some pretty good people. You don't know. Good for you. But you don't know about me. And it's like my alcoholism hides from me in the middle of a forest of other problems and concerns. I did heroin, I did speed, I did coke, I did pills, smoked a lot of pot, I drank, of course I drank, I got depression problems. I suffer horribly from depression. I suffer horribly from anxiety to the point of having I'm going to have a nervous breakdown. I suffer from some unexplained thing where I can't connect with people sober. I need alcohol to feel like I'm a part of. I guess I had that social anxiety disorder before it came out. I had problems with my family, problems with the police, the courts. You guys are telling me my problem's alcoholism. Oh, come on. that's the least of my problems. And it's an odd thing. As long as I looked at it like that, I kept relapsing over and over and over and over again. And a funny thing, I got broken, and my last run in 1978, I tried to kill myself, and I got broken by the despair and the anguish and the hopelessness of that condition. And I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I started to find out how wrong I'd been about alcoholism and how wrong I'd been about AA. See, I didn't think I was like you, and my God, I'm so much like. It's, matter of fact, if you're sitting here and you revel in the feeling that you're unique and special, get ready to be disappointed. You know, I've listened to probably over 300 fifth steps. I'm still looking for somebody that's unique, special. And every time I listen to a fifth step, I'm thinking, well, maybe this guy will have something. It's always the same stuff. You know, what's something unique, like a giraffe and a vibrating lawn rake or something? Something like where that guy's telling you and you go, oh, I never heard that one before. It's never like that. It's always the same scared, inadequate, pathetic person trying to muscle up and look like they're better than they feel because we're scared and we feel so less than. And God, you look at the sex inventories, my God, it's evidentiary of people who never learn from their mistakes. It's a guy repeating the same thing, just changing partners, same thing over and over and over, and the same selfish, self-seeking, selfish alcoholic keeps showing up and keeps getting the same results. But I don't know any of that. I'm pretty convinced I'm not an alcoholic. And I think the one thing that stood out to me and that I grabbed onto is I went to, got in from early 70s all the way to 78. I probably went to 150 AA meetings, at least. And I listened to you, and I watched you. And sometimes I would end up in AA, and I'm in a lot of trouble. And so I'm desperate to have something happen. So I'm watching you and listening to you. And something became very apparent to me. God knows I'm in a lot of trouble, but whatever's wrong with me is not the same thing that's wrong with you. Because I listen to you and I watch you. You guys, I'm sitting in the meeting. I haven't had a drink for a month or two. I'm in a halfway house, but I haven't had a drink for a while. You're sitting in the meeting. You haven't had a drink for a while. I listen to you, and my God, you people stop drinking and you're grateful for everything. For my God, I don't even like me. I mean, I don't like not grateful. I don't even like anything. I'm just like I exist in a shell of disappointment. You know, jeez. And you guys you're so happy, and you talk. You love people. Oh, Jesus, stop it. You ever been newly sober? You just burnt your life to the ground. You want to kill yourself. And some yahoo in A comes up to you with a big grin on his face. Has anybody told you they love you today? You try to hug me and we're going to have a fight. You know what I mean, right? Because I don't want nobody touching me. And all the God talk. And I came here, I was an atheist. I wasn't really an atheist. I wanted to be an atheist. I've known some real atheists. You have to be very religious about your atheism to be a good atheist. I'm not that guy. I'm scared. I'm really scared. If there is a God, oh my God, I'm in so much trouble because I'm so stained. If there is a soul, my soul is so stained that I ain't God's guy. Some of you are nice people. You have kids and great. I mean, not me. Not me. Because I was staring at how my case is different. And I'm one of those kind of guys by nature. If I just think you don't like me, I'm going to not like you first. And so I did that with God because I suspected I'm not going to be good enough for him, so screw him. And I lived in the desolation of alcoholic who's defended against the only help that he'll ever could have. And God works through people. He works through the people in AA, and I'm defended against you because I just sit in meetings. I don't identify. I just sit there and pick you apart. Now, there's people in the room right now that are noticing what's wrong with me. And I think you're probably right. But it doesn't change the fact that I'm sober over 46 years and you're struggling to make another day. So sometimes we fail upward, you know? And if you're new here and you just, oh my God, you can't stand, and I understand this, if you can't stand being wrong, oh, you're going to have a hard time here. Oh, I'm telling you, you're going to have, oh man, because we grow by our willingness to be wrong. And you know that's true, because if you could grow even a millimeter from being right, it'd say somewhere in our literature, and when we were right, we promptly admitted it. It doesn't say that. Because I got too much of me between me and you, and I got too much of me between me and God. I'm arrogant, I'm puffed up, and you got to deflate me, or I'm never going to be able to join you, and I'm never going to be able to connect with God. So I don't know what's wrong with me. When I tell you today that I'm a chronic alcoholic, I'm telling you some things that you know if you're one and you're sober and you've gone through the steps and you're armed with you're awake to who and what you are. You know some things that are true about me. And I don't even have to tell you. You already know they're true. You know that there was a time in your early drinking, as there was in my early drinking, when the effect produced by alcohol was so unbelievable and so monumental. I became obsessed, not with alcohol per se, I became obsessed with the effect. I remember the first time I was almost 13 years old, first time I was with a bunch of older kids, and we pulled a burglary and stole some bottles of whiskey from somebody's house, and I didn't know nothing about it. My parents weren't alcoholic, never saw anybody drunk, don't know anything about it. But I remember the feeling. You know, it's like you don't know that you don't really feel good until you really feel good. And then I remember thinking, oh my God, where's this? This is amazing. I want to feel like this the rest of my life. And I tried. But I'm an alcoholic. So not only do I have an effect that I found in alcohol in the early days that created an obsession for that effect, for that feeling of freedom, for that being able to come out and play and be connected to life and people. It was almost as if alcohol was a medicine for all the crap that was secretly wrong with me. And I didn't know that. I just know, man, I sure like myself a lot better when I'm drinking than I ever liked myself sober. And so that's the deal. Except, which if that was all there was, I'd probably still be drinking to this day. But I have a bad reaction to alcohol. And I've always had it, even though for years and years and years, I couldn't see that I had this abnormal reaction to alcohol when I drank it. Now, I could see that I was in trouble, but I get explanations for that stuff, you know? I'm very defended, and I can explain the unexplainable. Dr. Silkworth says, after a time, we can't differentiate the true from the false. To us, our alcoholic life seems the only normal one. I normalize the bizarre. You peed in our kitchen. Everybody does that. I mean, you know, right? That could happen to anybody. I mean, you know, nobody I know, but, you know. Jeez. Well, the problem is that when I start drinking, something happens to me that only happens to alcoholics. And this, I think, is the litmus test for alcoholism. There's a lot of people that come to AA. They don't have this. I wonder why they come here. Now, it's not my job to pronounce anyone alcoholic or non-alcoholic. But if you can drink alcohol without burning your life to the ground, why are you here? I've met people. I've met people that say, I've seen people there. We had a guy just recently, about 2 years ago now. He came into AA and he was sober 16 years. And he went out and it was bad. And he went out and he was he had a lot of money. He made millions of dollars in sobriety. And he bought like probably a quarter pound or more of cocaine. He was slamming it. Ended up in a coma, in life support. And they were talking about pulling the plug on him. He came out of that coma somehow. And I worked with him for a little while, and I went to talk to him. I said, "So what happened?" He said, "Oh, I just I bought a whole bunch of coke and was slamming it." I said, "But did you drink?" He said, "No, I never really liked it much. He said, I had one of those pineapple beers. It tasted pretty good. You had one?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "So you can drink, take it or leave it alone?" "Yeah, I'm always afraid if I did, though, it might trigger my obsession with cocaine." But it didn't. You've drank in your life and it didn't? Yeah, actually, before I got here, it did. I was able to have a couple drinks now and then. I said, you've been in meetings, you sponsored guys. You've been in meetings for 16 years. Did you ever have a feeling as you sat there and listened to people talk about their drinking like, well, it's not really like that? He said, "Well, a lot of times I wouldn't identify with it, but I would try to transcribe it into my mind and imagine that, well, cocaine's kind of like that." And he said, "I got that in a treatment center. They told me it was all the same thing. I got out of treatment. As I was leaving treatment, they said, well, just go to AA and say you're an alcoholic." That's a good way to start your recovery, a program of rigorous honesty with a lie. I mean, I think that's a winner right there. And he said, and now he's got a couple years, he's got 2 years, I think. Goes to CA, and he's been able to connect there and find a usefulness. See, I got to help people. And the greatest thing I have to help people is not my knowledge. And you can memorize the big book and die of alcoholism. It's my experience. As one alcoholic connects with another alcoholic. And that's what happened to me in 1978. I was in my last detox center, and there was a man in there who brought meetings in there twice a week. He was the first guy to ever do meetings in detox before there was an H&I committee. He was an all-in member of Alcoholics Anonymous. Him and I were brought together by divine appointment. He's my first sponsor. And I remember sitting there, and I just tried to kill myself. And I'd been living homeless on the streets with sores because I don't eat, and just I'm a mess. I stink. And he's talking about all that. He's talking about hopping freight trains and hitchhiking around the country and running from the law and sleeping in abandoned buildings. He's talking about my life. And he's talking about his suicide attempt. And he wasn't making this up. If you've ever tried to commit suicide, you hear someone talking about that and how they felt, you know if they're on the square or not. He was on the square. And I'm sitting in the meeting listening to him share, and I'm nodding my head, and I'm thinking, my God, I'm like that. And yet I've been watching this guy, came in there twice a week, and he laughed a lot. I don't laugh at all. I mean, you take alcohol out of my life, and I get serious. Everything's a big deal. It's one of the number one symptoms of the bondage of self is seriousness. I'm serious. And he laughed a lot. And here's a guy that had been homeless. And I found out later that he lived in a mansion up on the hill with its own tennis courts and one of the most respected business owners in Las Vegas. And not more than the material stuff. I wanted to know how he got from the depressive, mopey person who couldn't stand himself sober to the guy who laughs a lot. I remember watching him in the hall, and I was thinking, it was baffling to me. I was thinking, my God, this guy looks like he's happier sober than I was when alcohol was fun. And sometimes you dare to hope if you're hopeless. And that's why we talk about being alcoholics of the hopeless variety. When you're hopeless, sometimes you dare to hope. And I remember thinking to myself, if I ask him to sponsor me, and I did everything he did, everything he asked me to do, is it possible that whatever this thing happened to him, something happened to him? Because I'm like him and yet I'm not because something has happened to him. Is it possible that whatever happened to him could happen to me? And Chris Christopherson, who died not too long ago, one of the great songwriters, he wrote a song that was made popular by Janis Joplin called Bobby McGee, and there's a line in there that says, freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose. And sometimes, no matter how defended you are, no matter how arrogant you are, no matter how direction resistant you are, you get to a point where it's, I got nothing to lose. I'm dying here. Why don't I do what the people in AA do? I've never done that before. I've been around here. I've been in therapy with some of the rock stars of psychotherapy. I've had multiple diagnoses. My mother was a therapist. I worked in the field in the early 70s. I tried a lot of things, but I never really tried AA. And I got this man, I went to him in detox, and I said, I was scared. I remember the feeling. Like, I'm afraid if I ask him to sponsor me, he's going to throw me away because I would have thrown me away. And I've always suspected other people feel about me the way I feel about me. And I said to him, would you sponsor me? And if you will, I'll do anything you ask me to do. And he lit up. He wasn't going to throw me away. He was excited. You'd think he won the lottery or something. Oh, yeah, well, I want you to come to my home group, and I want you to do this, and we're going to go to a meeting tomorrow. And he just started pushing me into AA. And he wanted me to go to a lot of meetings. And he wanted me to do some things I didn't want to do. And I think the measure of surrender, and surrender is the basis and the essence of AA, is you're willing to do things you don't believe in or you don't feel like doing. I remember I was an atheist. He came up to me. I was brand new. I was still in the treatment center. He said, listen, kid, I want you to physically get down on your knees every morning and every night. I want you to ask whatever's running the universe for help and then thank that at the end of the night. And I said, well, I can't do that. And he said, why not? I said, well, I don't believe in God. He said, I didn't ask you to believe in God. I asked you to pray. So I said, well, listen, if I pray and I don't believe in God, I'd be a hypocrite. He said, you've been a hypocrite all your life. Just do it. Just do it. And it was the first direction I ever took and followed through with that I didn't feel like doing, I didn't believe in, and I didn't want to do. I was in a men's halfway house. I'm in a room with bunk beds and guys, some of them out of prison. Listen, you don't get down on your knees in front of a room full of guys out of prison. You just don't. Oh my God, they'd have a dress on you within a week. You can't do that. So I'd have to go into the bathroom, and I'd lock the door, and I'd take the throw rug, and I'd throw it up underneath the crack in the door so nobody can look in that crack and see me pray. That's how crazy I am. Like you're lining up outside the door to see if Bob's praying. Nobody cares, right? Except me. I'm paranoid. And so I get down on my knees, and I do that, and felt in the beginning it was very awkward to me. In We Agnostics, it says that something that touches me deeply. It says, God does not make hard terms with those who seek him. I don't even believe in God, but I started following directions of someone willing to possibly entertain that there might be. And from the moment I started turning my consciousness towards something that I don't even really believe in, stuff started happening in my life. And I was living the promise of the second tradition. What is the promise of the second tradition? In AA groups where we come together, in the long form it refers to AA groups as a spiritual entity. When we come together for the purpose of recovery, there's something in the midst that's greater than the sum of the parts. In a good recovery meeting, you can feel it. You come to my home group, people from all over the world come there, and they comment about, oh my God, the spirit in the room. Because we're We're shoulder to shoulder. We're 300 people in a room that also do a lot of 12-step work, that take people through the steps. We do traditions. We're a 3-legacy group because we respect what's here and we want to maintain it. And so we do 14 panels a week. We do tradition workshops. We do big books. We take people through the steps out of the book. We do all that because we're all in. And there's a spirit in that room. And I don't think that's true of all AA meetings. I've been to some meetings where, have you ever been to a meeting that by the end of the meeting you think, my God, I need a meeting or something. I need something. Because I feel worse now than I did when I came here. Because there's nothing feeding my spirit there. Because God talks through people. When we come together for the purpose of recovery, the ultimate authority expresses himself through the consciousness here. And he always does. But you got to pull your head out of your butt to hear God talk to you. And he talks to this day, if I'm not sitting in a meeting taking people's inventory, if I'm not sitting in the meeting thinking about me, which is my favorite thing to think about, but if I'm present in a meeting, God will talk to me. And God, he started talking to me a lot in early AA. I mean, because I was a basket case. You know, I'm going to go to prison, I think, for 2 years. I'm homeless. I finally got a bed in a halfway house. I can't get a good job. I can't, my family will have nothing to do with me. They won't even talk to me. They won't even take my phone calls. I owe a lot of money I've hurt some really nice people. The shame of it rides me. So I got a lot of problems. And I don't know what to do about it. And I go to meetings and God's talking to me in the meetings. I remember one day I had this job. I felt so awkward in this job. And my boss came in that morning, and I was sober just long enough to have enough self-esteem to be dangerous. And he came in that morning and disrespected me. Well, I'm sober long enough to have my rights back, And I was going to punch him, except that he's an ex-Golden Gloves championship, so I'm not going to do that. But I'm going to quit. But he disrespected me and then left. Well, I can't quit till he comes back, because you got to say some things to people like that before you leave. So I'm waiting all day, chewing on that. You know how you chew on your mind? You chew on that like a worn-out piece of bubble gum, just chewing on it. And the lunch hour came, and I thought, this thought came to me, and I think it was from God. It wasn't from me. Instead of going down to the lunch counter and ordering a cheeseburger or something, why don't you go across town to that noon meeting? And it was such a thing on me. And I ran out and got in my car, and went to this noon meeting, and the meeting had already started. And I sit down you know how when you sit down at a meeting, you're not conscious, you're not present for a minute or so till you kind of settle in. And I settle in, and as I'm settling in, there's a stranger in the meeting talking about how his boss had told him to do something and he didn't do it. And then when his boss found out he didn't do it, his boss jumped him about it, and he was going to quit his job, and his sponsor said, quit your job. You're not going to quit your job. You're going to go make amends to your boss. And I'm sitting there, and I'm thinking, my God, that's exactly what had happened to me. He asked me to do something before I left work the night before. And I was too obsessed with myself and what I wanted to do and meet my friends at Denny's and all that stuff. And I didn't do it. Thinking, I'll do it tomorrow. And tomorrow came. I went into work. I didn't do it. And I came back from that noon meeting, and I did it. I did it. Really worked hard to set that thing up the way he wanted me in that store. And he came back into the work, and I went up to him and I told him, I said, I am so sorry. You asked me to do that last night, and I was so selfish and so arrogant. I blew it off. And then when you asked me about it this morning, you just asked me about it. I got defensive, and I was a bad exam. Just gave you a hard time. I was wrong, and I'm sorry. And I got it done, and I want to show you, I really got it done the way you wanted it, I think. And he looked at it and he put his arm around me. He said, "Oh, kid," he said, "we all make mistakes." And he told me a story about it when he first got into that business, that how he screwed something up. And this was transformational, because earlier in that day, it was the worst job on the planet, and I'm going to quit it, and I hate working here. And then by the time I talked to my boss, it was like, "Oh God, I love working here. This is such a good place." And through the actions I took, you know. And well, there's another aspect of alcoholism, and it's really what kills guys like me. You know, I'm starting to understand, after many treatment centers and many failures at trying to control and enjoy my drinking, that I got that allergy you guys talk about. Maybe I've had some experiences, maybe you've had them, where I'm a blackout drinker. Oh, that's why when I found speed and Coke, I found the solution to blackout drinking, I thought. But then you remember that stuff, which is not good. And if any blackout drinkers in here, oh yeah. See, it's bad. It's hard to go through life when other people know more about you than you do, isn't it? I mean, and I don't know about you. Nobody came up to me the next day and said, "Oh, Bob, you were so helpful last night." You hit on my grandmother. You told everybody you beat Bruce Lee in a karate match? I mean, you know, it's horrible. Well, I had one of those nights, and I come to, I don't have any place to live, which I didn't for about 4 years. I'm staying on a guy's couch, because that's what happens to guys. You ever notice you talk to new people, "Where do you live?" "Well, I'm staying over there." You know what I mean? Right. "Well, where do you live, Bob?" "I'm staying over there. You know, I don't have a place to live." And I'm staying on this guy's couch, and this guy, he loves to tell me what I did the night before. He gets glee from that. You know what I mean? Oh, God. And so I'm putting the pieces together of what happened, because my blackouts aren't the whole evening. I remember little horrific, shameful snapshots, you know, from the night before, horrible stuff. And I'm piecing it all together, and I'm just sitting there thinking, "Oh my God, I can't do that anymore. I could have went to prison." Now there's a whole group of people I'm so ashamed of and embarrassed by I can't even go around them anymore. And I'm thinking to myself, man, I'm not doing that anymore. But I'm nervous, you know, and I come to, and I got shakes a little bit, you know, and I need some medicine bad, but I can't do what I did last night. Can't do that anymore. I just cannot. But I'm supposed to meet my buddies down at Dots, which is the corner bar where sometimes we go in the back room and play music and shoot pool and drink. Boy, I'd sure like to meet them. But I can't do what I did. I don't know what to do. And then I came up with a plan. And if you're sitting here and you're going to drink again, you need a plan. It's not going to help, but it soothes you going into the drinking. You know, you get the illusion. I got a plan. I'm good now. I got a plan. And here's my plan. My plan is, okay, I'm going to go down to Dots, and I'm just going to slow sip 8 drinks. Because I never punched a cop on 8 drinks. I never do anything, but never tried to take my pants off over my head on 8 drinks. That's always somewhere north of 12. If I could stick to 8 drinks, I'm good. But I got this allergic reaction to alcohol, and I don't know it. And so I go down to the bar, and I'm going to slow. Well, I can't. I'm not a slow sipper. I'm not. I'm like that. I start to drink with the intention of sipping. But I'm like that dog they used to use in the Alpo commercials on the Tonight Show. They don't feed that dog for 2 weeks. And they bring him out on the stage with a bowl of Alpo, and that dog goes crazy. Just, you know, I'm that. That's when I start drinking. It just gains momentum as I'm drinking. As the alcohol hits me, I break out in an overwhelming, oh yeah, more. I got that phenomenon of craving bad. I don't know it, and I don't know it. And so I had the plan, though. It was a good plan until I got to 7. When I'm sipping on that 7th drink, it's like an epiphany. It's like a spiritual awakening. I realized, oh, 8's a bad number. That's not a good, that's stupid. Everybody knows that's stupid. 8 drink. 12's a better number. And I didn't understand that was an allergic, abnormal reaction to alcohol. Because to me, it doesn't look like that. To me, it looks like I changed my mind. I got more information. And I had that happen to me every time I drank. I was 10 years sober, and I was at a speaker meeting, and there was a speaker shared something that wasn't my experience, but it made me wonder. He said that he drank socially without a problem for a number of years, then crossed over a line into alcoholism. I remember thinking, did that ever happen to me? I went home that night just mulling over all my memories of all my drinking, trying to find, was there a time, when I'm in some guy's basement, we're doing lines, smoking a little pot, drinking wine, or maybe I'm at the bar with my buddies doing shots and beers. Was there ever a time when after an hour, my buddy said, hey, can I buy you another one? When was the time I looked at him and thought to myself, no, I'm good here, thanks. I couldn't find one time, because that phenomenon of craving, that allergic reaction to alcohol, has been on me since the beginning, even though I couldn't see it, or I justified it, or I had excuses for it. But it was always there. Well, if that was all there was to alcoholism, then I guess a treatment center would produce a winner. But there's something else that's wrong with me. And you don't know it until sometimes it's too late. And it's not just that I have an abnormal reaction to alcohol, I got an abnormal reaction to abstinence. And I get physically sober and I am not right. Now, I can't tell you why. I can't tell you what's wrong. I remember having a counselor a couple days before I went out and drank again. I was in a halfway house, and the counselor was a nice guy. He wanted to help me, because I guess I didn't look like I was happy, joyous, and free, I suppose. I'm depressed, of course, because I'm sober. And he asked me, he said, Bob, what's wrong? And I remember looking at him, thinking to myself, my God, I wish I could tell you. I don't know. It's not that anything in particular is wrong. It's just, for God's sakes, nothing's right. My life is blah. And I'm disappointed in my life independent of its quality. Because I'm the guy that can get that Harley that's in the magazine. 3 weeks later, the shine wears off of it. I don't even, I got the wrong bike. Get that girl, that one you wanted, you thought about her for weeks. Finally get with her. Think, oh yeah. With her, I probably won't have to drink ever again. 2 weeks later, it's, God, was I wrong about her? Jesus. And what is that about me that the shine wears off of stuff so quickly? And this guy's asking me what's wrong, and I wish I could tell him. But I can't hang the way I feel and the way I think on anything in particular. And I didn't know that what it was alcoholism. It's a sickness of my very being. So you know what happens? I get like a mule in a hailstorm, and I don't drink day in and day out, and I'm not taking any pills, and I'm not smoking nothing, till I just get it up to here. And I don't want to hurt myself, and I don't want to hurt anybody else. God knows I've hurt a lot of people, but I can't take it anymore. And I don't know why. I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know that it's alcoholism. So I drink. Sometimes it doesn't always start with alcohol. I mean, one time I went out and bought 2 bottles of NyQuil. I didn't have a cold, but I felt one coming. You know what I mean, right? And it's like 35% alcohol with some dextromethorphan, some stuff. I don't know what it is, but it kicked that thing off. I've had doctors giving me medications for my emotions, and a slower burn, but it would kick that yearning off inside of me. And I don't know what's wrong. And, you know, I'm not anti-treatment center, but treatment centers, my interpretation of what I heard there messed me up. Because, you know, you check into a treatment center, they'll ask you a question. Most places do. What's your drug of choice? What do you got? I mean, I don't, you know. And here, this, if you're new here, this is crazy, but this is my experience. Alcohol never was my drug of choice. It's my drug of no choice. I may have a surgery before I die. I may be stuck in a hospital and be forced to take narcotics or other drugs that are problematic for us if you're not careful. And there's some choice there. A little, it's dangerous, but there is some choice. Not with alcohol. You end up in the hospital, the doctor, instead of coming in and say, I'm going to give you some narcotics every 4 hours because you're in a lot of pain, if he came in and said, listen, I'm going to give you 4 shots, 100 proof vodka every 4 hours. First time he gave me 4 shots, 100 proof vodka, I'm leaving the hospital with that bathroom flapping in the background because I got to get to a liquor store because alcohol is my drug of no choice. And it's just the way it is. I've been going to a detox meeting. I've been going to a minimum of 2 detox meetings a week for over 46 years. And I see something you don't see unless you go to those meetings. And especially in Vegas, there's something about Vegas that it's like, we call it the hitting bottom capital of the world. I mean, it's, for 12-step work, it's a target-rich environment. And if you're 40 years sober and you live in Kansas or Florida or Maine and you drink again, I'm telling you, Vegas will call you. And they end up on our streets. And I'll tell you, it doesn't matter if you had in your IRA or your pension fund $2 million. Vegas will take that away from you so quick between the prostitutes, the drugs, the alcohol, and the gambling. It'll make your head spin how fast Vegas will take that from you. And then they end up in our detox. Some of these people were vice presidents of companies and stuff. And here they are. Skid row, low bottom detox. And we meet them. And I started, because I relapsed for all those years, when I started years ago, I started talking to these people. If you're sober over 5 years and you drank again, I want to know what you weren't doing that you should have been doing, or what you were doing that you shouldn't have been doing. I want to know the level of your commitment, your commitments, your attendance, your sponsees. I want to know how are you showing up in AA? And I'm looking for a common denominator, because I don't want to, whatever it is, I want to defend myself against that, because I don't got another recovery in me. I tried to kill myself on my last run because of the anguish and hopelessness. And so I'm looking, you hear a lot of weird things in AA. You hear things like, well, he drank again because he stopped going to meetings. That's not always true. I know guys that went to 2 meetings the day they drank again. Oh, he got disconnected from God. I've sponsored clergy and deacons in churches that drank themselves to death, that prayed more in one day than a guy like me would ever pray. Read more spiritual literature in one day than I would read. They did something they shouldn't have. They did something horrific they shouldn't have done. It was terrible. I don't think that's true. My sponsor had a saying. He said, we don't drink over mistakes. We drink over hiding them and defending them. What's the common denominator of all these people? And if you go up to a guy that's drank after 20 years of sobriety, ask him this question. Just say, I am so sorry you're here. I'd like to help. I know the road back is difficult. I'd like to help. If you'll give me a list of your AA commitments and the new people you're working with, I'll step in for you. They don't have no list. because their primary purpose at one time might have been to help God's kids. At one time, it might have been 12-step work, but it's not. Their primary purpose now is themselves. And they moved what we're supposed to be doing out of the center of their life and moved themselves in its place. And I know that's true because when I was 19 years sober, man, I was suffering from alcoholism. And it was crazy. I went into a depression, and it was nuts because materially, it was the best year of my life. I made more money that year than I'll probably ever make, ever, in my life. I had everything I wanted. But it's a sick feeling when you got everything you want and you don't want it anymore. You know, the shines wore off. And Chamberlain used to say, Chuck Chamberlain was very influential in my early sobriety. I heard him on a couple occasions say, if you're alcoholic and you don't have and maintain a surrender, you'll eventually get to a place where you will run out of things you can put between you and you. And there you are. And there you are. And I at 19 years sober, I was in that spot. I had everything I wanted, and I didn't want it anymore. And a guy in AA told me the truth. And God speaks through people. That's why if I didn't go to meetings, I wouldn't hear these things. And the guy, I told him, he was a buddy of mine. He was sober a little longer than I was. And what he said to me was God speaking through him. And I know that because he's not that bright. And I told him about how I felt. And here's what he said to me. He said, you still go to a lot of meetings and you sponsor people and you do just enough service to have the bragging rights of being a member. But I don't think you're all in AA anymore. He said, I think your primary purpose is you. And it pierced me because it was true. They say the truth will set you free. Yeah, it ruined your day first, though, I'll tell you. But it was like being hit with a bucket of cold water because it was true. I was the center of my universe. My money, my sex, my property, my stuff, my feelings were the center of my universe, and I'd lost my way. And that guy snapped me out of it. Within a couple days, I got my car full of new guys from the Samaritan House, taking them to the meetings. I'm going to like 4 and 5 detox meetings a week because I got to get back in the saddle. And it works. You can get really far out on a limb, but if you don't pick up a drink, God can bring you back through your actions. And it's only through the actions. My first sponsor what a great man he was. I got sober before the big book renaissance. And I say that because I heard Joe and Charlie from a set of cassette tapes from the 1980 International at Wesley Parish that spread around all the people that were going to go around the country. And my home group is a big book group. And I'm listening to Joe and Charlie, and I'm listening to them and thinking, what book are they talking about? I belong to a big book group. We don't talk about that stuff. We don't focus. And we had never looked at the book like that. And so I know what it's like to get sober in an era where there weren't any big book technicians. Nobody was taking anybody through the steps back then. It was a 2-legacy program, basically. I mean, they were doing the steps, but most of the people back in that day were doing the life story, all the honest as you could be about the shame and the guilt and the resentment. But they didn't have the formats of the book. They didn't know about this was our course. They didn't know about any of that stuff. But my first sponsor, he had the essence and the gestalt of AA. He knew intuitively that he must devote his life to helping other alcoholics. That's why he started the meetings in the detox. He'd been a delegate. He'd been an intergroup rep. He started the convention. He was a guy that didn't talk about AA being important. He demonstrated it. Talk is cheap here. Actions are the essence of transformation. And he was an all-in guy. He was my example. He was perfect for me. And I was not even out of detox, not even a week. And he starts hammering me about 12-step work and service. And, oh my God, it's like every time I'd talk to him, he said, you got to help people. You're on the 12-step list. I want you to come into the detox with me. I want you to go to Reality House. I want you to sign up for the prison. I thought, Jesus. I'd worked in therapy for a while, so I pulled a little bag of tricks out of my therapeutic bag, and I said to him, well, I understand what you're saying, but don't you think I should work on me for a while? And he looked like he bit into a lemon. He's reared back, work on you? You've done quite enough of that. Stop it. And I couldn't argue with that. I mean, I did Gestalt therapy, Primal Screamed. I went to New York and was with Ellis in the Institute for Rational Emotive Therapy, Gestalt, transactional analysis. If it came up on the radar and it looked like it was going to make Bob feel better and be better, I took a run at it because Bob is Bob's number one piece of business. I'm a victim of the delusion that the book talks about, that I could wrest happiness and satisfaction out of this world if I only manage well. So when I get to finally get surrendered here by the bottle after a failed suicide attempt, you guys didn't have to convince me that no human power. I tried everything that I could try. And I think, isn't it funny how guys like me, we approach God not through information, we approach God through failure and despair. We fall upward. I think we struggle and suffer our way towards the light here. My sponsor wanted me to do 12-step work, and I started doing it. And I found the exact same thing that Bill Wilson found. Bill in his story talks, and he was a depressive like me, and so was Clancy. Clancy told me, we talked a lot about why he did as much AA as he did, because without it, he just sinks into himself, just as I do. And in 1978, my first sponsor, he must have intuitively knew about me, things I didn't know about me, and he pushed me into 12-step work. And Wilson says in his story that there were times where he'd be so overcome with depression, self-pity, and resentment that he was afraid he was going to drink again. And he said in desperation, he'd go down to Towns Hospital, and he'd spend a couple hours with some guy down there. And he said he'd be miraculously uplifted and set on his feet. He called it a design for living that works in tough going. And that has been my experience. Now, I don't know if it's everybody's experience, but I'll tell you it's mine. It's been the juice that's driven my engine into sobriety. I have a sponsee he does a lot of 12-step work. He says a funny thing. He says, oh yeah, 12-step work. That's the good dope. Yeah. And isn't it odd that I drank for a sense of freedom and a sense of unity. Alcohol was a tremendous treatment for the spiritual sickness of alcoholism. And I've had experiences, and I suppose if you're an alcoholic, you've had the same experiences. Walking into a bar sober, or a party sober. But you don't leave and run out even though you feel like it, because that's where the medicine is. Walking in there and just look around, there's people shooting pool and people at the bar, and they're stupid, cliquey people, not my kind of people, and my spirit is depressed and withdrawn and sick. And I had about 3 double shots of whiskey. All of a sudden, those people in that bar look kind of interesting to me. I mean, I think I was wrong about them. About 5 drinks in, I'm shooting pool with some of them. 8 drinks in, we're planning our vacations together. I get spiritually connected. You ever been so drunk with people you didn't know before tonight, and you're saying things like, I love you, bro. I'll die for you, man. Oh my God, against the backdrop of the loneliness and isolation and separation of alcoholism, that is some pretty heady stuff. And so, if you would have told me in 1978, my last detox, if you would have told me the truth, I wouldn't have believed you. And what would that truth be? The truth is, Bob, if you make Alcoholics Anonymous the center of your life, and you get out of that group you've been in for almost 7 years, of the people who do not recover that are dying, and it says those are because they cannot or will not completely give themselves to the simple program. If you abandon that group and you throw yourself into Alcoholics Anonymous and you make it the center of your life, you're going to find something that will blow your mind. Not only are you going to be successful in life in all areas, but you're going to find the freedom and the connection that you used to find in the bottle when the bottle was magic. You know something? Think about it. If AA doesn't do what alcohol did when alcohol did what alcohol did, what the hell good would it be to us? You think it's just we just come here and huddle up and don't drink and just feel like we're doing time? I have to have a transformation. And the transformation is achieved here by action, and it stays in place because I can't access God's grace without altruistic actions. You know, I'm too full of me. I'm too full of me. So here I am, a little over 46 years sober, and I'm a very happy member, very satisfied customer of Alcoholics Anonymous. And if you're new, I'll tell you something. AA's got good news, and it's got bad news. The good news, truly, and I'm not trying to sell you nothing, this is an effective treatment for the stuff that drove you back to drinking time and time again. The bad news is our treatment doesn't work as fast as 5 shots of tequila. Thanks for listening.